when you come from driving heavy equipment and you make it, I'm one in a million that's made a living for 30 years. I've been doing it 41. For 30 or 31 years, I've been doing this for a living and won 9 championships now. That didn't come by accident. So it's just, I'm gone from my family. I'm gone from my wife. I didn't get to raise my kids. My wife had to do that. So I missed a lot of time back in. I don't think in a million years I'd have had any idea of how I've turned out here. Started this thing right after we got out of high school and started racing around here, at East Bend and Farmington, places like that. And one thing led to another. And then we got into the super stock and into super modified, but had no idea it was going to turn into all this. Yeah, when we started the super modified thing in IHRA, they canceled the class basically because I was winning it all the time, they said. And, Bobby, the thing is, we just worked hard. I mean, Jack Raps would tell you, he's the one that started with me and Keith Fowler. And I worked night and day on that car, and we was laying on that was a sportsman car back in. We were laying on that car at the motel. We'd have to take the car out of the track so we could stay and work all night. But we'd pull the pan off that car, check bearings on it. It wasn't no two-piece pan on something like that like it is on these cars. You had to pull it off the block and seal the rubber back and all that stuff. So we worked hard to pull them championships off, and I wouldn't change anything, that I'd done back then. It was just hard work that won them championships. Well, that's where I wanted to go when I started, with Keith Fowler, a country music promoter around here that had Conway Twitter, the Oak Ridge Boys. That's the reason you saw that on a lot of our cars back then. But that's where I wanted to be, was up there with Wayne Gap and Bob Glidden and all them people, and then we started out in the supermod thing. But when they done away with the class, I was just tickled that Keith decided he didn't want to go back to a breakout class, because Keith didn't understand that. He was a NASCAR guy, and he didn't understand why we'd ask for more money to go faster, and we'd come home the next week and tell him we went too fast for the reason we lost. He just said, I don't understand that. We're not getting back in that kind of racing. He said, if we're going racing, we're going into pro stock. And when he stepped up and gave me an opportunity to go in that was a golden opportunity then in the latter part of '78. And Don Hardy built the cars, and he raced all the way up with me till '81. We ended up wrecking that '78 Mustang that we'd built. We wrecked it at the old Richmond track, the end of '81, with about 2 races to go. We were like first and second in the points, and we ended up borrowing a car from some guys out of Maine, Wally Balchunas and some people up there, an old Fairmont. We finished the season, and Keith decided to quit, and I bought the engine and transmission out of the car that we'd wrecked, and got Don Hardy in, talked in to help me out with the car some, and I started on my own in 1982. John Causey was doing our engine stuff and I started with no spare parts, nothing. Working with my father and them in construction work, driving bulldozers. And we just built our house in the latter part of '78, the one I live in now. And my wife thought I was nuts, and I probably was, but I raked and scraped everything I could do. Borrowed what little money the bank had let me borrow. SRO, a nightclub down here, they called it SRO. the name was Standing Room Only is what that stood for. I talked that Wayne Wilson into giving me $10,000 for the major sponsorship on the door of that car that year in 1982. And we come out in 1982 and I won the championship on my own against Sox and Warren Johnson and Lee Shepard, people like that. And from that point on, Ford got interested in me and seen I was serious about what I was doing, and I got some Ford sponsorship for IHRA, and Glidden had the deal for NHRA, and it worked out great. I mean, we finished third, I think, or something in 83, and I think it was second or third in 84, and about the same. We were second or third every year from 82 when we won the championship till 86, and we won 4 in a row. 86, 87, 88, and 89, and we were on our way to dominance again. I mean, just, again, hard work, and I dedicated. I started doing this for a living in 83, started racing in 73, and we were just on a path to dominate that deal again, for some years. And yeah, when I come into Pro Stock, it was a wild bunch in there, no doubt. The cars were kind of crazy because we all had some big motors in them, almost like Pro Might is now, but we didn't have near the technology back then we have now, and we didn't know to cut clutches. We just put them in and left them in, and we'd burn them up. We didn't know you had to take them out every run and cut them. So there was a lot of stuff back then, and we didn't have a clue what was going on. But, I mean, me and Roy Hill and Harold Denton and Ronnie Sox and people like that, we'd run some of these little tracks around here like Summer Duck and Piedmont and Farmington. Man, I mean, we were out in the grass sometimes, had the grass thrown up and ain't got out of the throttle yet, and made it to the other end. So there were some wild days back then, and like I say, between me and Roy and Harold Denton and Ronnie Sox and General Lee, I mean, we were all just a bunch of rednecks having fun and making a little money at it.
Did you guys see yourself as equals?
Well, I don't know if I saw myself equal with them back then. It just seemed like NHRA always had they were the major league. We were kind of the Busch Grand National circuit, And the biggest thing that helped us a lot, as far as the IHRA racer getting the publicity and making himself feel as good as the NHRA racer in those days, was when Winston come along and started getting TV coverage for us. And if it hadn't been for Winston, in my book, drag racing wouldn't be close to where it is, and NASCAR wouldn't even be nowhere where it is right now. So if it hadn't been for Winston, we'd all been suffering as far as drag and NASCAR racing. But when Winston come involved, they almost at one time there in the early 80s, middle 80s, they almost had both these sanction bodies getting the same publicity. TV was really good. That's what got my name out there so good.
Shepard against Rickie Smith, indeed a classic confrontation. Here's Rickie in the number 2 Parkway Ford Thunderbird.
And he goes up against the Muhammad Ali, currently of drag racing, the man with the big knockout punch, Lee Shepard. Lee Shepard has the 16 fastest ETs in history. He's won all 4 of the IHRA meets in 1984. He was the fast qualifier again here this week in the Cincinnati area. He's the man to beat.
Both with a good start.
Oh, this could be close. Smith has got a chance. Here they come to the line.
Too close to call at this point. It could be a win by Rickie Smith. Yes, it is. Rickie Smith has stopped the streak. Lee Shepard's streak of 5 is broken. Smith with a 183.29, 7.6 ET.
Oh, you can tell he's a happy guy. I was about ready to say he must be very pleased. Let's look at it again. Watch the tree now. When the light goes green, you can take off. Both of them cutting it very close, I might add. I'll tell you, they left just a little bit before the green light went on, but the electric eye didn't catch them. They got a couple of inches there of leeway. Down through the quarter mile, side by side, and much too close. Oh, you can see it there visually on the stop action. But if you were watching either in person or in live time, there's no way to call it.
Congratulations to Rickie Smith. Let's see how he feels.
Yeah.
Let's step in here with the winner, Rickie Smith, the first time in 5 races this year that this man's been beaten in the final, and you finally did it.
Thank the Lord. That's all I know to say, you know. Lee, I'm just, you know, I couldn't believe it. You know, I like to lost the second round, you know, something bad. My car got loose when I run Lee that time, you know, but it stayed straight, and the good Lord was with me, and I want to thank Goodyear and Motorcraft a lot. You know, they sticking with me, and I'm really looking for a big year next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you a lot.
A big win for Rickie Smith in Pro Stock.
Nobody in a hurry here as you saw the clouds starting to come, maybe cooling this racetrack down. You know, Rickie Smith.
They don't call him Tricky Ricky for nothing. He'll, if he spots a weakness in the staging procedure, he will try to exploit it every chance he gets.
Pushing 30 seconds now. He will not be the first guy to go in.
You know, and Rickie's been that way all through his career. You know, he especially if he has a disadvantage on the performance side, which he does with Brad.
Can you have a burn down in a pro mod? What happens?
Well, it runs out of fuel and thing dies probably.
We're up to 50 seconds now, pushing a minute. Rick says that's enough. We're going to back him off.
Yep. So you guys don't want to play along, we're backing out.
Well, this will bring a new little wrinkle into today's pro mod drag racing.
I learned a lot of lessons early. I mean, we had a pretty fast car at one time when we come out with that big motor, and Ralph's done the motor, and then we switched over to Kazi, and we had the bigger motor than Warren did for sure with the Ford. They would just, the blocks would handle bigger motors at that time, bigger cranks, and but we didn't know how to run them. I didn't know how to run them good. I didn't have the experience Warren had in pro stock, but we were fast, and they were just wearing me out on playing games and hole shots, him and Ronnie both. And I let that happen the first year there pretty good, and I kind of made up my mind that winter. I said, you know, if I'm going to get beat, I'm going to get beat because I'm ignorant too. And I went out with the same attitude they did the next year. I wasn't going to stage in spite of nothing. And there was one year at Rockingham, I knew that you were supposed to have 7 seconds, or, you know, roughly we all had a time frame of 5 or 6, 7 seconds that we had to get staged. And I had walked up and asked the starter earlier that day what was the rule on staging. You know, when another guy pre-stages, when another guy stages, how long have I got to come in? He said, you know, 5 or 6 seconds, 7 seconds, we kind of go in that area. I said, no, that's what the rule is. I got that much long to get in. He said, yeah. I said, okay, that's all I want you to remember. And that's all I said to the starter about what was going to happen. Because me and Warren had staging battles the year before, and we'd done had a couple that year. And it was at Rockingham, and John Causey was doing our engines. Well, we go up first round eliminations, and back in those days, IHRA allowed you to do 1 push start in the pros. Well, first round eliminations, my car wouldn't crank. The little Ford solenoid that we used to use back in on the firewall went bad. It just clicked. Well, they push started. We come back, found out what it was, put a new solenoid on it, fixed it. Okay, we're good. We go up the next round, and I run. Well, I think it was the semis I had to run Warren. And I told Kazi, I said, let me tell you something. If he goes up there and wants to start this battle again, you know, I'm not going to heat this. He knew my old motor would. We didn't know how to build them real good, and they would generate heat pretty fast, and he knew that, and he knew my motor would build heat pretty quick because it had a lot bigger stroke in it than his. So he'd do that to me a lot. And I told him, I said, if we go up there, I'm going to pre-stage with him. And I said, we're going to sit there a few seconds. If he don't want to go in, I'm cutting my motor off. Because he looked at me and said, Lord, Ricky, don't do that. He said, you know it didn't start to run before. I said, it's John, don't worry about it. I said, I'm cutting it off. I said, you watch and see what I tell you. We went up there, sure enough, done our deal. Sat up there probably 10 seconds or so, and I seen he was going to play the game. I reached up there and pulled the power switch off, because our panel, and just like now, all the switches were up, and I just hit the kill switch. I knew everything was sitting there running on the car. The fuel pump, water, everything was running. All I had to do was hit the ignition switch and fire. So we sat there, and we sat there, and we sat there. Finally, I heard Warren start to go in against the clutch and pull the motor in. As soon as I heard him do that, I reached and fired mine. And just as I fired mine, he lit the bulb. I just went immediately in with him. I didn't even think about it. I just fired it and jumped in. My adrenaline, I was wound up as an 8-day clock at this time, you know, nervous as hell, because I didn't want to get red lighted. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I fired that thing, and as he went in, I went in right behind him. Within probably a second and a half, I beat him on a crazy hole shot. I mean, he outrun me, I think, 500 or 600, and I beat him. And David Rear, and they were all there at the time, Joe Lapone, all of them. They went and bitched IHR and tried their damnedest to get me thrown out. But they said, hey, he didn't take no crazy time coming in. He actually jumped in right behind him. There's no reason we can throw him out. So I won the round that time, but it pissed a lot of people off. My competitive nature comes back from high school. I went to South Stokes over here. We went to that in the 9th grade. 9th through the 12th went to this high school. And King and Wanacova town I was raised in were competitors, you know. And we met at South Stokes. And the first year we were there was a running back come from King. His name was Ricky Johnson. About halfway through the season, they moved him up to the varsity team. Well, that pretty much pissed me off, because I could whip the boy's ass without a problem. It's just I wasn't a running back. I was a lineman, a linebacker, a roughneck, and I didn't get worked up there. Well, when we went off our 9th grade, when we went back to work that summer, I worked with my grandfather driving bulldozers. Whenever we had a job, and maybe a quarter mile down the road, or the job would be a mile-long job, a lot of times for a quarter mile or half mile, I'd either run or walk. And I'd carry these old big wrenches with me. And I'd just carry them, walk with them, do this and go. I just made up my mind when I come back, and August 8th was our start of our season, when I come back to practice, I was going to be ready for anybody. I didn't care if it's senior or not. And when I come back in, they moved me right to varsity, and I started offense, defense, kickoff team, receiving team.
Roundhouse, spinning kick, spinning kick, spinning kick. Get him up there. Ready, jump roundhouse. Good kick. Up, come on, kick it. One more, ready, go. Come on, kick it hard. Kick it hard. Good kick. One more time. Good kick. Up.
You know, I'm competitive as crazy, and people did ask me my senior year. They got on me about fighting this monkey we had around here. And I did get in there and fight him, and I wasn't drinking at all, you know, at the time. Because most people got in there and fought him that I saw over the years. They were 25, 30-year-old people, and I was 15, 14 back then. He just beat the pee out of them people, you know. And I said, you know, I'll beat that monkey, you know, but I went in there sober my senior year, and that monkey broke my jaw, cracked my jaw, and that was a bad deal that year. But I wasn't drinking when I went in, but I was drinking by midnight. But it was a good deal. That's just how competitive I am. It didn't matter what it was. I was going to try to beat him. I've tried a lot of times not to get emotional, you know, and it seems like the harder I try, the quicker I get that way. And everything I'm doing, like I say, I was raised up driving bulldozers with my grandfather. I started driving heavy equipment and bulldozers when I was 13 years old. So I know how hard work is. I know how it is to be broke. I was that way for a long time, and I'm scared to go back that way, you know. And I just worked hard. Once I got a chance to be successful here, I just don't want to go back that other way, you know. And it just comes from my heart, you know, what I tell you and what I do. And it's so, people, I know people out there think they work, you know, the way I do and as hard as I do. And, well, yeah, we work too, and, you know, we don't get emotional, this or that.
What is it about your nature that you would do anything to win?
Refusing to lose. That's all there is to it. Refuse to lose.
So, if you had your career to go all over again, is there an area you would change?
If I had my, you know, something to change or start all over in my career again and change anything, Bobby, I don't know anything I'd change. I mean, I've done it, I think, the best I can with the money I've had. I've had to step on some toes going up that ladder, but I don't think any of the toes I stepped on, and when I say toes, I'm talking about businessmen out here. Racers sometimes get mad at me and they don't like me, you know, but they had the same option I did. We played the game. They didn't have to play the game. They could have went up there and staged, and I had to come in, you know, and stage. But when they wanted to play the game and I won, don't get mad at me. You played the game too. So, you know, I've been beat both ways, and any businessman out here, Bobby, there's not a, you know, I'm soon be 61 years old and been doing this 41 years. There's not one person out there that says I got an open invoice that I owe them anything over 30 days or 60 days. I don't even think 30 days, but I don't have an open invoice. I have never beat one manufacturer or anybody out there out of a part or a ticket that I owe them for. I may not like what they charge me, and I've tried to tell Matthew this. You pay what you order for. If you don't like what it is or you don't like what happened, you pay the bill, but you just learn not to go back. It may sound, a little silly, but I've won 9 championships now. I've had a lot of success, you know, winning whether it's the NHRA now or the IHRA years. But when Jeff Bird put my name up there at Bristol, and I didn't get put in, and I'm not discrediting anybody that got put in after us, but I got put in on the original 4, and the original 4 was Wally Parks, Larry Carrier, which was president of IHRA, Wally Parks, president of NHRA, and Don Gartless. I mean, I don't know anybody else you could compare yourself to that's any higher in drag racing than those 3 guys. I mean, John Force is bad. John Force ain't Don Gartless. And I'm not saying I'm Don Gartless by no means, but I'm just saying, when I got put in with them 4 guys, and from what I understood, it was the media and people like that out of Bristol that had that vote. Well, I didn't buy my way in. Absolutely, my success has all been because of my family, especially my wife. I mean, you know, my deal is always, I got married 3 months before I got out of high school, okay? I wanted to get married. I wanted a family. before we ever come out of high school, I done had my mind made up that I wanted a family, and I was just raised that way from my mom and dad. But what I'm most proud of over that deal is have I been a goody-goody? No. Have I been a perfect person? No. I mean, but the whole time, through all this success that I've had, and I've watched a lot of people out here have success, racers and whatever. As soon as they have success, it seems like they're better than their wife or the wife's better than them, and they split up. I never faulted that pattern. You know, I'm proud of keeping my family. My wife, 42 years since high school. Like I say, I'm no perfect person. She is, and she's raised my kids. But I want to say one thing that I'm proud of is I handled all this success. And everybody says, "Oh, she should have left you. She should have done that." Well, the shoe's on 2 foot. I could have been sorry enough, no matter how good she was. I could have been a sorry enough person to walk away from her and went on with my success. But I didn't. I raised my kids. I'm still married to my wife, and you know I've kept my family together, you know, through all these years. And I think that's what people need to look at when they start having success, is don't get above your raising. You married that woman, you had kids, raise your kids, and do what you're supposed to do. I'm not saying you're going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect in this world, as I know of. God will tell you that, basically. But keep your family together. If you do that, I think you'll be rewarded. My next generation, I guess, of my family's coming along is Matthew, and Matthew come to work for me not long after he got out of school. He was driving a Pepsi truck around here, hauling Pepsis, and then he got to drive. He left here one day driving my truck out of my driveway over there, my 18-wheeler, and that was probably one of the scariest but most proud of moments in my life, to see my son leaving in my rig, because anybody that knows me, that truck is as more important to me as my cars. That's my baby, you know. I'm proud of that 18-wheeler. And when I seen him going out the driveway, that was a pretty good honor, and I knew then that he was going to be somewhere. And, you know, he's took and come along with this deal and won 2 championships himself, and fighting, you know, some factory-backed teams. But when he decided to go pro stock racing several years ago, I gave him $10,000 to go buy his first bike with, I think. And that's the only penny that I've ever given him to this day. I let him work in this shop for 3 or 4 years, and now he's built his own shop over almost as big as this. Matthew has got everything he's got on his own. You know, his dad's not really giving him anything other than the first $10,000, but I'm awful proud, because I know how hard it is back then and now to get to the point he's got to. That's a tough deal, and you got to dedicate your life to that, and that's what he's done. He's dedicated his life. He's neglected his family. Sometimes that happens, but you know, he's proved himself to be right, you know, and be a competitor and be a good person out here, and he's got an awful good name in the racing community, and I'm awful proud of that. You know, my other daughters, one of them's married to Scott Speed, you know, which is a NASCAR racer, and my other daughter's married to Brandon Schweitzer, which owns Schweitzer Dynamics. So they all have good success, and they all have good families, and I'm proud of all of them.
As we watch again, the 2 drivers had nearly identical reaction time. But it was all for naught for Frank Iaconio, as he had problems getting a hold of the racetrack. Rickie Smith did not. His elapsed time, a 7:39, a disappointing 7:52 for Iaconio after those great 7:20s earlier in the day. The heat of this racetrack rose up to bite him in the final round, just the place he didn't need it to happen. Rickie Smith at the finish line, winning his first ever NHRA title.
Let the party begin in King, North Carolina. The miracle has happened.
The miracle's happened, I'll tell you what. Thanks Southland Fire Extension, Carolina Drilling, Larry Tetterow, Matthew Smith, my wife, my kids.
And a great clean race. Identical reaction times. He had a little tire shake.
God knows I needed to win the race.
The way I want people to remember me is I was a hard-ass racer. I was dedicated to my job 200%. And if anybody asked me to help them, 98% of the time, people that's asked me to help them, I went and helped them. And I'm talking about a lot of that help has been free. There's been times back in the IHRA days that I got in their cars and drove them on Friday and testing, and knew that I had to run against them on Sunday. So I don't know how much more you could do for your competitor when you'll get and set his car up and know you got to race him in a day later. So I just hope people remember me as a hard racer, as somebody that really tried to help the other racer when he needed help.